What really happened before Antarctica froze into eternal ice? Dear traveler, greetings. Today we set off to discover a forgotten continent, unrecognizable, far from the white and hostile expanses we know. A once lush land, carpeted with forests, traversed by mighty rivers, inhabited by creatures long extinct. But before we embark on a new adventure, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Thank you and have a nice trip. "4 billion years ago, Earth did not yet have its continents. Its surface, made of incomplete rocks, evolved in a scorching and unstable climate. During the Archean, a period ranging from 4 to 2.5 billion years ago, the Earth's crust solidified, and the first foundations of Antarctica began to emerge. Rocky fragments floated in a primordial ocean, subjected to violent volcanic eruptions and frequent meteorite impacts. It was in this chaotic setting that proto-Gondwana began to form around microcratons. Microcratons, some of the oldest continental crust blocks, are the basic building blocks of continents. In West Antarctica, the Marybird Land Craton illustrates this process. Small rocky rafts, drifting and then fusing through collisions and subductions. These events contributed to the formation of proto-Gondwana. Among the rocks that make it up, the Napier gneiss bears witness to the extreme pressures and temperatures of the Archean, offering a unique glimpse into the tectonic dynamics of that era. Rock dating is a key tool for uncovering Earth's secrets. In Antarctica, geologists have unearthed zircons, tiny millimeter-sized crystals with an exceptionally stable core. Formed in silica-rich magmas, they trap uranium, which slowly transforms into lead over billions of years. By comparing the proportion of uranium to lead, we can date these crystals with remarkable precision. Some zircons from East Antarctica are more than 3.8 billion years old, revealing a mantle already hot enough to crystallize complex minerals and providing a valuable insight into the forming Earth. These discoveries transform our understanding of Earth's internal heat. If zircons crystallize so early, it means pockets of magma, already hot and chemically differentiated, existed deep in the mantle. This heat, the engine of convection, magma production, and plate movement, is at the heart of Earth's geodynamics. The chemical and isotopic analysis of zircons reveals the pressures and temperatures of the time and suggests the early presence of water in the mantle. These hints explain how cratons, highly stable rock blocks, have lasted and preserved the thermal and tectonic memory of the planet. Among the signs of intense activity during the Archean and Proterozoic eras are high-pressure metamorphisms, which transform the structure and chemistry of rocks under strong tectonic and thermal constraints. The Lutzow-Holm and Rainer belts in East Antarctica are the remnants of vast orogenic episodes, collisions, subductions, and partial melting of continental blocks. These events shaped part of the Antarctic basement. The metamorphic rocks observed there retain unique mineralogical and geochemical signatures, providing a precise account of the formation of the Proterozoic basement. The Lutzow-Holm and Rainer belts illustrate the complexity of exchanges between the lithosphere and mantle. During the collisions and interlockings of continental blocks, new thermal and pressure conditions transform the minerals in the rocks. High-grade metamorphism there attests that the crust was buried several tens of kilometers, where pressures and heat from the geothermal gradient and ascending magmas trigger complex reactions. Schists, gneisses, and migmatites retain these marks, and their analysis reveals the stages of the formation and deformation of the crust, from its collisions to its exhumation. Beyond the geological dynamics, evidence suggests early, even rudimentary, life on these forming lands. The oldest known photochemical habitats in Antarctica date back to the Neo-Archean, around 2.8 billion years ago. Sunlight was already powering photosynthesis, enabling some microorganisms to convert solar energy into chemical energy. The stromatolites found in eastern Antarctic basins are proof of this. These columnar or domed structures, formed by bacteria, testify to life capable of thriving despite low oxygen levels and sunlight different from today. Even if discrete in the geological records, these primitive organisms left their mark on their era. Through photosynthesis, stromatolites began to enrich the atmosphere with oxygen, laying the foundations for aerobic metabolism well before its rise. In the Neo-Archean basins of eastern Antarctica, life thrived in warm and shallow waters, but also in more hostile environments. The rapid mineralization of some stromatolites protected the microbes and created niches favorable to diversification. Each fossil structure already attests, in the Archean, to the interdependence between the geosphere and the biosphere. During the Proterozoic, from 2.5 to 1 billion years ago, cratons consolidated, while episodes of metamorphism and sedimentary deposits gradually sealed the traces of archaic worlds. Proto-Gondwana took shape thanks to the accretion of microcratons, making Antarctica a key element of the southern hemisphere. Ancient zircons still reveal their secrets, while stromatolites reveal that microbial life was already exploiting environments that we would consider hostile. Between 1 billion and 520 million years ago, Antarctica underwent profound transformations during the Neoproterozoic collisions, when several continental blocks moved and assembled to form Gondwana. At that time, life was mainly limited to microorganisms, algae, and rare multicellular ediacaran forms. The polar lands were the scene of vast tectonic collisions, while the surrounding oceans harbored primitive marine life. This major episode sheds light on the slow genesis of a continent at the planet's extreme south. A billion years ago, Earth hosted several distinct continental masses, the future fragments of Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica. Each block retained rocks and continental roots from earlier geological cycles. Their movement resulted from plate tectonics, dynamics of the lithosphere floating on a partially ductile mantle. Heated from within, this mantle slowly drove the accretion, collision, and fracturing of the plates, forging mountains and basins over millions of years. The Pan-African cycle refers to a series of major tectonic and metamorphic events that occurred between 1 billion and 540 million years ago. It involved Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica. Two major geological sutures, Mozambique and Kunga, sealed the union of these blocks. A suture is a scar left by the collision and welding of two plates. The Mozambique suture links Africa to fragments close to Antarctica, while Kunga marks the junction between India, Australia, and Antarctica. One can imagine ancestral Antarctica slowly drifting until it played a key role in the formation of Gondwana. The collisions with other continental blocks raised vast mountain ranges by thickening the crust. In these areas, heat and pressure transformed the rocks. New minerals appeared, schists and gneisses formed, and some rocks became denser. In some places, subduction triggered volcanism that produced large granitic batholiths in depth and volcanic chains on the surface. The Trans-Gondwanan orogeny, or the formation of the primordial transantarctic mountains, shaped a range that today separates East Antarctica from West Antarctica. More than 500 million years ago, these budding mountains rose in an environment without an ice cap. Compression forces fractured, folded, and stacked rocks, opening or closing faults where hot fluids sometimes circulated loaded with minerals. Erosion and sedimentation then reshaped the relief, depositing strata in adjacent basins. The final cratonization corresponds to the stabilization of the Antarctic crust after long tectonic and metamorphic phases. This process is accompanied by crustal thickening and the formation of large granite batholiths in depth. Progressive erosion exposes these structures, which form the bedrock of many current mountains. These rocks, hundreds of millions of years old, testify to the solidity acquired by the continent at the end of its formation. Between 715 and 635 million years ago, the Earth experienced the extreme climatic episode of Snowball Earth, during which it is thought to have been almost entirely covered in ice. According to one hypothesis, the decrease in atmospheric carbon dioxide associated with the configuration of the continents favored the extension of ice to near the equator. The high light reflection of icy surfaces, the albedo, amplified the cooling, leading to a glacial spiral. Evidence in Antarctica, particularly in the Shackleton region, confirms this global glaciation. The Shackleton series are Neoproterozoic sedimentary strata now located in the Transantarctic mountain range. They contain indicators of glacial deposits, such as pebbles or boulders embedded in fine rocks, transported by glaciers or icebergs before being abandoned at sea. One can also observe striations on the stones and structures typical of mixed glacial and marine deposits. These discoveries prove that extreme cold already prevailed in Antarctica at that time. These repeated glacial eras hindered the expansion of life, especially for large organisms. Under the ice, photosynthesis was limited, and marine life had to adapt to a cold and nutrient-poor environment. Some resistant microorganisms, such as photosynthetic algae or bacteria, survived in pockets or at the edges of the ice cap, where light could still penetrate. This drastic selection gave rise to robust pioneer forms, which would initiate the Cambrian diversification. But between 1 billion and 520 million years ago, life remained discrete, dominated by modest ediacaran organisms in some seabed. After the collisions of the Pan-African cycle, Antarctica gained stability. Its metamorphic rocks formed a solid foundation around which other crustal fragments aggregated. The mountains resulting from orogenies eroded, feeding basins that some of which disappeared while others persist on the current eastern Antarctic coasts. As part of Gondwana, the continent linked with Africa, India, Australia, and part of South America until the Mesozoic, when new tectonic forces began its fragmentation. Flying over Antarctica of the era, one would have seen a mostly ice-free relief, dotted with regional glaciers without a continental ice sheet, except during extreme episodes like Snowball Earth. The climate varied according to the position of the continents and the atmospheric content of gases such as CO2. Volcanic activity released this gas and warmed the atmosphere, while its capture by the crust or photosynthesis favored cooling. These mechanisms caused, during the Neoproterozoic, strong climatic fluctuations, alternating glacial phases and milder periods. The formation of large batholiths, resulting from the slow crystallization of vast volumes of granitic magma in depth, marked the future structure of Antarctica. These intrusive masses, composed of robust granites with varied hues, reinforced the forming mountain ranges. Uplifted and fractured by tectonic forces, they remained a pillar of the continent. Later, Glacial erosion exposed their mineral veins and sculpted the steep valleys seen today. To trace collisions, scientists combine geological mapping and isotopic analysis. They measure, for example, the isotopic ratios of lead, uranium, or strontium in minerals like zircon. This resistant crystal encloses uranium, which transforms into lead, allowing precise dating of magma crystallization. These data reconstruct the stages of mountain and batholith formation. In the Pan-African cycle and the trans-Gondwanian orogeny, they reveal very ancient rocks in Antarctica, pieces of a vast continental puzzle. On the periphery of Antarctica, India and Australia developed their own orogenic belts and sutures. The Kunga suture then aligned the Antarctic reliefs with those of these two continents. Its name sometimes means to gather in certain southern languages. Further west, the Mozambique suture connected East Africa and Madagascar to Antarctica along the axis of the current Indian Ocean. The whole formed a giant puzzle whose joints are etched in the rock. In the late Neoproterozoic, the Ediacaran fauna developed worldwide, soft, flattened organisms in the shape of imprints or discs among the earliest complex multicellular communities. Some clues suggest their presence near Antarctica, although fossils are rare. These creatures lived on the seafloor, filtering nutrients and organic matter. The lands, almost devoid of plants, only hosted algae, lichens, and microbial colonies, whose colonization was halted during the extreme glaciations of snowball Earth. The end of snowball Earth is explained by the gradual accumulation of volcanic CO2 under the ice. The greenhouse effect intensified until it triggered rapid melting, releasing oceans that absorbed the heat and revitalized ecosystems. In Antarctica and elsewhere, sedimentary processes resumed, erosion increased, and new coastal environments emerged. Post-glacial deposits, finer and rich in clays or carbonates, attest to the return of open water. Over time, through collisions, Antarctica stabilized within Gondwana. It became a wide, continental platform, supported by the nascent trans-Antarctic mountains and granitic batholiths, frozen deep below. Glaciers and global glaciation still mark the sediments. The marine diversification of the Cambrian is on the horizon, but has not yet begun in this Neoproterozoic. The Neoproterozoic episode is crucial for understanding Antarctica. The successive collisions shaped its contours, establishing structures that would guide its future geology. The cratonization forged a stable core, limiting later deformations. Snowball Earth gives it a key role in studying extreme climate impacts, while its rocky remnants offer a unique glimpse of the resilience and adaptation of life under hostile conditions. This journey through Neoproterozoic collisions shows Antarctica as a major player in Earth's history. Each rock retains the memory of this foundational era between the strength and fragility of life. Between 520 and 443 million years ago, in the Cambrian and Ordovician, Antarctica occupied a very different position. Vast seas covered its lands, populated by trilobites and brachiopods, while volcanism enriched the oceans and the Ross orogeny initiated the elevation of future mountains. Imagine traversing these marine and volcanic landscapes, witnesses to a foundational stage in the continent's history. On the Victoria Land platform, the seas then displayed temperatures of 20 to 30 °C, far from today's ice. This ancient Antarctica was bathed in nutrient-rich waters, conducive to a thriving marine life. The sedimentary layers, filled with various fossils, reveal a stable platform with lagoons and coastal zones where numerous organisms flourished. In these Cambrian and Ordovician oceans, we encounter iconic creatures of the lower Paleozoic, trilobites and brachiopods. These marine animals, less known today than modern shells or crustaceans, held a dominant place in benthic ecosystems, meaning living on the seafloor. Trilobites, arthropods related to current insects and crustaceans, had a body segmented into 3 longitudinal lobes protected by a hard shell. In Antarctica, their fossils dating from the Cambrian and Ordovician attest to a wide distribution in shallow seas. Comparisons with species from Australia or South America confirm that these areas were part of the same Gondwanan assemblage, where marine fauna circulated freely. Brachiopods are marine animals with 2 shells, similar in appearance to bivalves, but belonging to a distinct group. Anchored to the seafloor by a pedicle, they filtered suspended particles and left behind well-preserved calcareous shells. In Antarctica, their Cambrian and Ordovician fossils, close to those from Australia or South America, confirm the continent's integration into Gondwana and serve as key markers for reconstructing its ancient configuration. For an audience not very familiar with paleontology, one must imagine the Cambrian as the great boom of animal life, the Cambrian evolutionary radiation. It is at this time that a multitude of new forms emerge, of which trilobites and brachiopods are just 2 examples among many others. Primitive echinoderms, mollusks, and other invertebrates explore new marine habitats. The Ordovician extends this dynamic, multiplying species and giving rise to ecosystems more varied and structured than ever before. In the lower Paleozoic, Antarctica was not merely a plateau bathed in warm seas. It also experienced intense tectonic activity. The subduction of ancient oceanic plates off the coast of Gondwana fueled the formation of the Ross volcanic arc. This type of arc, a chain of volcanoes situated above a subduction zone where oceanic crust sinks into the mantle, owes its name to the Ross Sea, near which traces of this ancient volcanism remain. The volcanism of the Ross Arc likely alternated between effusive and explosive eruptions. The rocks produced, lavas, ashes, and pyroclastic deposits were buried and then metamorphosed, but the remains indicate an andesitic or basaltic style depending on the contexts. The pyroclastic deposits, made up of material expelled during eruptions, bombs, ashes, blocks, lava fragments, could settle on the seabed and mix with sediments. They form stratified layers sometimes rich in minerals favorable to planktonic life. Marine fertilization refers to the contribution of minerals from erosion and volcanic fallout, iron, manganese, phosphorus, that nourish certain populations of marine microorganisms. These nutrients stimulate the growth of plankton, the basis of oceanic food chains. Thus, the volcanism of the Ross Arc was not just a geological engine. It could locally enrich Antarctic waters and support the growth of marine fauna. The phenomenon is reminiscent, on a different scale, of zones of increased productivity around certain current volcanic islands, where the encounter between fresh lava and water triggers an explosion of life. In this ancient world, no human eye witnessed the eruptions. Yet, the chemical analysis of volcanic rocks, their association with nearby sediments and the fossils they contain, allow geologists today to reconstruct the chronology of events, measure the frequency of eruptions, and assess their impact on biodiversity. The ash layers, or aerial deposits, serve as valuable temporal markers. Sometimes extending over hundreds of kilometers, they can be precisely dated. Thanks to them, the volcanism of the Ross Arc becomes a tool to mark the Cambrian and Ordovician times in Antarctica. Comparing these records with those from other regions of Gondwana helps understand how life responded to changes in its environment. Although Antarctica is known today for its imposing mountain chains, this relief did not form overnight. It was precisely during the Cambrian and Ordovician that the first signs of this elevation appeared, during the Ross orogeny. Orogeny is the process of mountain formation, often linked to the collision of tectonic plates or the uplift of the Earth's crust. Here, the subduction linked to the Ross volcanic arc gradually compressed and thickened the crust, causing the slow but continuous uplift of the terrains that would become the Transantarctic mountain range. To better understand this mechanism, imagine two tectonic plates that slowly move closer, or an oceanic plate sliding beneath a lighter continental plate. The rocks fold, pile up, and gradually form reliefs. Antarctica was not isolated, but a piece of a vast continental puzzle. This transcontinental uplift affected a vast corridor connecting other segments of Gondwana. Over time, erosion carried materials from the elevated areas, which were deposited around, forming foreland basins where these sediments from the mountains accumulate. The foreland basin simply refers to a large valley carved out in front of a mountain range in formation. Under the weight of this rising, rock debris from the peaks accumulates, carried by rivers and streams. These deposits stack in layers, telling the story of a transition from a shallow sea to more terrestrial environments with rivers, deltas, or marshes. During the Cambrian and Ordovician, these basins preserved valuable traces of fauna, volcanism, and changes in the Antarctic landscape. The Ross orogeny did not conclude in a few million years. It merely marks the beginning of the Antarctic mountains' uplift in the early Paleozoic. Over subsequent periods, these reliefs grew, then were shaped by erosion, glacier retreat, and sedimentation, influenced by climate and tectonics. Understanding this first episode is crucial for tracing the continent's geological evolution. Fauna and flora had to constantly adapt to landscape changes, sea level variations, and temperature changes. To understand the transition between the flooding of lowlands, volcanism, and the beginning of the orogeny, it is essential to remember that the Earth is driven by deep movements within its mantle. When one plate subducts beneath another, it can partially melt or release water, triggering arc volcanism and reinforcing the compression of continental rocks. In the Cambrian and Ordovician, volcanic and plutonic rocks, as well as folds and faults, bear witness to this intense tectonic activity. Zircon minerals date several magmatic episodes over tens of millions of years, while the sea covered these regions, nourishing abundant marine life. Today, thanks to isotopic dating, scientists can precisely date each magmatic intrusion or metamorphic episode. This allows them to reconstruct the exact order of events: marine transgressions, phases of volcanism, uplifts, sedimentary deposits, then new volcanism, and so forth. Thus, the early Antarctic Paleozoic is not just a simple episode of ancient marine life, but a complex intertwining of geological and biological events. Chemical variations, particularly in strontium and carbon isotopes, reveal how life and Earth interacted at this time. Alongside these marine dynamics, the land configuration was shaping ever-changing landscapes. Coastlines advanced or retreated according to sea level fluctuations. Deltas formed where rivers discharged their sediments into these warm seas. In some places, volcanism created small islands or shoals that offered new substrates for marine life. Primitive sponges, budding corals, algae, and organisms living on submerged surfaces settled there. At times, volcanic ash deposits disrupted these filtering communities, but these same ashes later enriched the waters, promoting plankton growth. The Cambrian and Ordovician were marked by global sea level variations related to glacial cap fluctuations and the amount of water stored on the continents. However, at that time, Antarctica was not covered by a vast ice cap as in the Cenozoic. Temperatures remained fairly mild, favoring the development of reefs and abundant marine faunas. The shores, if they were emerged, were likely covered with thin soils or rocks, with only mats of algae or primitive mosses. Indeed, the earliest vascular plants with roots, stems, and leaves would not appear until the Silurian, much later. The fauna of trilobites and brachiopods in Antarctica is crucial for understanding biogeography, that is, how organisms were once distributed on Earth. The presence of similar species in Australia, South America, or South Asia proves that these lands were connected or very close, sharing the same biota. Each new fossil discovered is compared to those from other regions, allowing scientists to confirm or revise the map of tectonic plate movements. Thus, this Antarctic history reveals the deep connection between terrestrial movements and the evolution of marine life. The epicontinental flooding of Victoria Land illustrates the great variations in global sea level, known as eustatic variations. When this coast was submerged, other parts of Gondwana were too, creating vast connected marine areas. Water circulated between the basins, facilitating species dispersion and genetic exchange. This marine mixing promoted rapid growth and biological diversity, as evidenced by Antarctic trilobites, which helped to better understand the geographic complexity of the supercontinent. Modern research advances our knowledge through new techniques like seismic tomography, satellite imaging, and paleomagnetism studies. These tools allow us to explore the continent's depths, even beneath the ice, to uncover buried traces of the Ross orogeny. Current marine sediments, sometimes more recent, also hold clues about these ancient events. For example, foreland basins covered with sediments reveal how volcanism influenced ocean chemistry and indirectly marine life. Even though Antarctica later experienced glaciations, limited plant evolution, and tectonic changes, the Cambrian-Ordovician episode remains deeply embedded in its foundations. The oldest part of the Transantarctic range dates back to this Ross orogeny. It is hard to imagine that an icy mountain began to rise long before the first terrestrial vertebrates. Yet, through mineral studies, geological cross-sections, and the identification of magmatic intrusions, traces of this vast transformation are found. The foreland basins formed after this uplift contain sediments that tell the transition from a warm, shallow marine plain to a tectonically active zone, heralding the birth of future reliefs. Today, on Antarctic coasts freed from summer ice, or in the heart of cores extracted beneath the ice cap, geologists search for precious Cambrian-Ordovician clues. They discover alternating layers of volcanic deposits and find sediments, as well as small crystals revealing light metamorphism under moderate pressure. Each nuance, each grain tells a story: sudden sea level rise, lava flow, or tectonic compression, as many witnesses to the deep past of the continent. During the Ordovician, life in Antarctica evolved rapidly. Trilobites diversified, while some brachiopods adapted to specific ecological niches. On the Victoria Land platform, still bathed by a warm sea, tabulate and rugose corals began forming small reefs, complicating marine habitats. Moreover, pelagic communities, such as naucoids, distant ancestors of some cephalopods, emerged in the water column. The end of the Ordovician saw, on other continents, a global cooling leading to glaciation, but Antarctic data remains sometimes fragmentary. However, fluctuations in sediments are observed, indicating sea level drops and local changes. This story stops here, but the transition to the Silurian and beyond will bring great upheavals. The lower Paleozoic in Antarctica was a key stage where warm seas, abundant life, and the first major tectonic movements intertwined. These events span tens of millions of years or more. Yet, for marine life, changes could seem sudden. A volcanic eruption covered everything with ash. A rise or drop in sea level quickly altered the coasts. With each upheaval, species adapted, migrated, or disappeared. These cycles of change are the eternal engine of our planet. For the general public, talking about trilobites and brachiopods may seem esoteric, yet it reveals how Antarctica, so cold today, was once a living world. Warm water covered these lands, volcanic ash mixed with sediments, and tectonic uplift shaped the future mountain range. Fossils, minerals, and sedimentary layers jointly tell this fascinating story, an essential chapter in the geological mosaic we know. The early Paleozoic era shapes the deep essence of Antarctica. Far from always being an icy desert, this continent was once part of a tropical world, a vast marine corridor, an intense volcanic stage, and the cradle of a future mountain range. Each element is a piece of the puzzle that reveals the vastness of time and nature's creative power. If today's Antarctica is a white desert, its Cambrian Ordovician past is a true rainbow of natural phenomena. It is on this vibrant canvas that the foundation of the microchains, sedimentary deposits, and the explosion of marine life were built, setting the stage for future evolutions. Thus concludes our exploration of the early Antarctic Paleozoic. As we end this journey, we can vividly imagine the landscape of an ancient coastline where a blazing sun caresses the waves, while in the distance, a volcano rumbles. A landscape distant in time, but whose traces persist in the icy stones of present-day Antarctica. The invitation to delve deeper remains open, for this chapter is just one facet of the wide paleontological and tectonic narrative of the White Continent. Between 443 and 359 million years ago, the Middle Paleozoic profoundly transforms Proto-Antarctica. The Silurian marks the end of a long glaciation. The ice caps retreat, the relative land level rises, and shallow seas pull back, giving way to emerged areas where rivers and plains develop. At the start of the Silurian, the climate becomes milder compared to previous glaciations, promoting the retreat of coastal marine waters and the rise of fluvial deltic environments. Alluvial valleys, channels, and floodplains offered ideal conditions for the first terrestrial plants. The South Pole, more temperate than today, experienced less extreme seasonal changes thanks to a different distribution of continents. At the transition from the Silurian to the Devonian, Antarctica presents a major geological marker, the Beacon Formation. These quartzitic sandstones, rich in cemented quartz grains, form a light and resistant rock widely spread between the transantarctic mountains and other ranges. This offers researchers a precious record of the continent's sedimentary history. In the Silurian and Devonian, large rivers traversed the ice-free polar plains, depositing gravels and sands that, once compacted, formed the quartzitic sandstone strata visible at the Beacon Heights. Their flow varied seasonally, under an ameliorated polar climate with less extreme insolation than today, but with pronounced seasonality. In the Devonian, life flourishes in Antarctic rivers and lakes. The sarcopterygians, fish with fleshy and ossified fins, herald the emergence of limbs. Fossils from the Prince Charles Mountains reveal forms capable of moving in shallow waters, foreshadowing the first tetrapods that will conquer land. Simultaneously, fossils of agnathans, jawless fish with cartilaginous bodies, protected by bony plates, reveal their presence in Antarctic lakes and rivers. These waters, cool but temperate in summer, could exceed 10 degrees, providing a habitat conducive to dynamic aquatic biodiversity, facilitating feeding and reproduction. Imagine valleys threaded with winding rivers, bordered by low plains where floods deposit silt and clay. On the banks, small vascular plants thrive under the polar daylight. The compaction of these sediments sometimes traps organism remains, preserving their fossils until today. This period experiences an orographic episode known as ice-free. Large glaciers are rare, replaced by fluvial erosion and precipitation. The gradual uplift of certain areas, located in temperate paleo-latitudes, results from plate movements and the rotation of Gondwana, combined with global climate variations. Under a milder climate, chemical weathering and pedogenesis intensified, forming ferruginous soils with red or brown hues, rich in iron oxides. Now absent in Antarctica, these Devonian soils bear witness to stable and fairly high temperatures that supported these processes over long periods. This climate episode favored the coexistence of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems in a moderately polar context. Fluvio-deltaic plains facilitated migrations and nutrient exchanges. The first vascular plants, by capturing carbon dioxide and stabilizing soils, reduced erosion and promoted sedimentation. In wet areas, small arthropods took advantage of this vegetation. These relationships already foreshadowed the basis of modern terrestrial life: plant production, animal consumption, and recycling by decomposers. Devonian sarcopterygian and agnathan fish played a key role in the rise of vertebrates. Some, with rudimentary lungs, breathed at the surface and coped with oxygen-poor waters, moving between pools during the dry season. This adaptation facilitated their transition to terrestrial life. Antarctic fossils, similar to those in Australia and Africa, confirm that these lands were part of the supercontinent Gondwana. Devonian agnathans, jawless, fed by filtration or suction, ingesting particles and small organisms. Their bony plates reflected an environment where predation increased with the rise of jawed fish. This competition expanded ecological niches, pushing each group to specialize. In Antarctica, food competition and the polar climate would have encouraged adaptations like cold resistance or spawning in sheltered areas. In the Silurian Devonian, the Prince Charles Range featured valleys and ridges slowly shaped by tectonics. Large rivers swelled in spring, then retracted, rapidly changing their beds. In wet areas, primitive forests of ferns and lycopods, with vascularized stems reproducing by spores, foreshadowed more complex biomes. These pioneering plants prepared the ground for the spectacular plant growth of the Carboniferous. By the end of the Devonian, orogeny accentuated the relief without forming massive glaciers. Rising high plateaus were eroded by wind and water. polar winds shaped dunes and aeolian deposits, while seasonal rains carved ravines and grooves. This dynamic landscape evolved constantly, with sediment accumulation contributing to a durable transformation of the region. At that time, the geographical position of Antarctica gave it temperate paleo-latitudes, offering much milder conditions than today. In some intracontinental basins, the average annual temperature could range from 5 to 15 degrees depending on altitude and proximity to the sea. These estimates, although approximate, are based on isotopic studies of fossils, soil analysis, and comparisons with other regions of Gondwana. Antarctica, then, was very far from the icy conditions that characterize our sixth continent. Without glacial erosion, the formation of ferruginous soils continued, coloring the surface red and orange due to the presence of iron oxides. These layers, now studied by geologists, reveal the atmosphere's chemistry and the vegetation of the time. In Antarctica, weathering, slower than in the tropics, nevertheless transformed the landscape over millions of years. Runoffs loaded with metallic ions then joined seas or lagoons. Early plants like Cooksonia enriched the soil, their decomposition releasing nutrients. Microbes and atmospheric oxygen favored the formation of ferruginous soils, remnants of an ancient geobiological cycle. Aquatic fauna, by migrating, also contributed to this fertilization. Indeed, excrement and carcasses deposited on the shores fed the first plants, strengthening the link between terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. The Upper Paleozoic, from the Carboniferous to the Permian, saw Antarctica still attached to Gondwana, alongside Africa, South America, Australia, and India. The continent experienced glaciations, lush forests, and varied fauna. Glacial traces, the Glossopteris forests, a source of coal in the Prince Charles Basin, and Permian fauna, Dicynodonts, labyrinthodont amphibians, preceded the Permian anoxic crisis. This crisis profoundly disrupted marine life at high latitudes. The late Gondwanian glaciation, during the Carboniferous and Permian, saw huge ice caps cover much of the southern hemisphere. In Antarctica, varves, tillites, and glacial striations, visible notably in the Allan Hills Valley, bear witness to successive advances and retreats of the ice sheet. These traces reveal the combined influence of orbital variations in CO2. The expansion of ice increases the albedo, amplifying the cooling and reinforcing glacial dynamics. Alongside the glaciers, forests thrived in some temperate regions of Gondwana, including Antarctica. Glossopteris, a seed plant with broad tongue-shaped leaves, optimized photosynthesis even in cold weather. Its fossils, found in Australia, India, or South Africa, confirm the past unity of the southern continents. In the Prince Charles Basin, these forests generated significant coal deposits, trapping CO2 and influencing the climate while offering a valuable geological marker. Permian terrestrial fauna shows adaptation to extreme climates. Dicynodonts, herbivorous therapsids with two large canines, lived in temperate areas of Gondwana, such as the Beardmore Rift. Nearby, labyrinthodont amphibians, predators with complex teeth, frequented lakes and rivers. Their fossils, found in Antarctica, illustrate the diversity and resilience of ecosystems in the face of climatic and tectonic changes. At the end of the Permian, Earth underwent the Great Dying, a crisis linked to powerful volcanic eruptions, the massive release of greenhouse gases, and oceanic upheavals. In the high southern latitudes, sediments reveal deep anoxia that decimated marine biodiversity. Cooling, disruption of water circulation, and excess nutrients favored microbial blooms, depleting oxygen. The chemical signatures buried beneath the current ice cap attest to the extent of this extinction. In these weakened environments, terrestrial life faced intense pressures. Declining glossopterous forests, decinodonts and amphibians in distress. Rapid climate variations and chemical imbalances in the soil, combined with active rifting, transformed landscapes and fragmented habitats. Some species found refuge in temporary niches, but extinctions accelerated. This unstable context shaped better adapted groups, heralding in the Triassic renewed fauna and flora in a transformed climatic and tectonic setting. To retrace this era, researchers combined several disciplines: stratigraphy and radiometric dating to determine the age of layers, paleontology to track species evolution, geochemistry to detect climatic events and anoxic phases, and modeling to reconstruct temperatures, precipitation, and circulation. These approaches offer a precise view of the Gondwanian glaciation, the Permian flora and fauna, and remind us of the fragility and resilience of life facing major changes. The late Paleozoic shaped Antarctica dramatically. The giant ice sheets of the late Gondwanian glaciation testify to rapid alternations between intense cold and melting. In milder areas, glossopterous forests, essential for carbon dioxide sequestration, produce the coal deposits of the Prince Charles Basin. The Permian fauna, from decinodonts to labyrinthodont amphibians, illustrates the diversity of survival strategies. This richness was shattered by the Permian crisis, marked by severe anoxia in the southern oceans, but it paved the way for Triassic reorganizations. Antarctic rocks remind us that every planetary crisis transforms life and offers a potential for renewal. At the beginning of the early Triassic, about 252 million years ago, Earth emerged from a massive extinction that affected much of marine and terrestrial life. In Antarctica, ecosystems began to recover from this upheaval. Although the climate still bore the marks of the previous crisis, it now provided new space for the development of plant and animal life. At this time, the climate was surprisingly milder for a polar continent. Ancient glaciations had diminished, and temperatures were warmer, although winter darkness persisted due to the southern position of these lands. In this new momentum, a remarkable phenomenon emerges. It is the rebirth of pioneer forests, dominated by a group of fossil plants called Dicroideum. These are seed ferns, plants resembling large ferns, but reproducing by seeds rather than spores. These plants thrive on soils enriched by the decomposition of previous vegetation, taking advantage of the low competition to establish themselves over vast areas. Their dense foliage modifies the soils, promoting their stability and creating new habitats for emerging fauna. The appearance of Dicroideum marks a true floral rebound. After the extinction, plant diversity had diminished, but these seed ferns show a remarkable ability to colonize various sites. They possess large fronds, long segmented leaves, allowing them to capture light during the shorter days of high latitudes. With the regained vegetation, a large number of insects begin to swarm on the Triassic Antarctic continent. Among these insects are xylophagous groups, which feed on wood. Their arrival coincides with the appearance of trunks and stems, offering shelter and a source of nutrients. These insects, from different families, drill galleries into the trunks to lay their eggs, or extract the organic matter necessary for their development. This phenomenon promotes the natural recycling of dead wood, enriching the superficial soil layers. By settling in the plant tissue, these insects accelerate the evolution of forest ecosystems in Antarctica, whose productivity is energized after millennia of precarity. Alongside this biological renaissance, the early Triassic in West Antarctica is marked by a major geological phenomenon, the gradual opening of an intracontinental rift. A rift forms when the Earth's crust fractures under stretching forces, creating collapsed valleys and, eventually, new sedimentary or oceanic basins. In Antarctica, these fractures foreshadow the future movements of continental plates. The West Antarctic Rift creates immense faults through which magma infiltrates. This magmatic activity gives rise to the Karoo-Ferrar volcanism, a vast expanse of basaltic lava flows. Basalt, resulting from the rapid cooling of fluid magma, is rich in minerals like pyroxenes and feldspars. During these massive outpourings, the magma covers vast surfaces, creating thick, superimposed layers. During the Triassic, the release of volcanic gases and the formation of locally heated zones influence the fauna and flora. Some regions are annihilated by the flows, while others see the emergence of warmer microclimates enriched with mineral elements. Over time, these basaltic plateaus will shape Antarctica's geography. Beyond the transformation of the landscape, Triassic Antarctica becomes the scene of fascinating paleontological discoveries. The first polar dinosaurs make their appearance. Among them, Antarctopelta, an armored dinosaur, testifies to the adaptation of fauna to more extreme climatic and light conditions than those encountered elsewhere. At first glance, such an animal seems improbable in polar regions, as dinosaurs are often associated with lush tropical forests. Yet, thanks to morphological and behavioral adaptations, some dinosaurs manage to colonize these high-latitude environments. In addition to these emerging dinosaurs, astonishing creatures called cynodonts appear. These synapsid vertebrates, close ancestors of mammals, display dental traits and a morphology suggesting an evolution towards warm-blooded furry forms. Thrinaxodon, for example, is an advanced cynodont found in some fossil deposits of the Transantarctic Mountains. Its presence in these remote areas indicates a worldwide distribution of these creatures, at least on the connected land masses of the time. Protected in burrows they dig, these cynodonts survive in harsh environments, demonstrating the resilience of terrestrial life. The early Triassic in Antarctica marks a transition to a warmer and more seasonal climate. After the Permian crisis, the atmosphere became enriched with carbon dioxide released by volcanism and the decomposition of organic matter. This increased the greenhouse effect and kept temperatures relatively high, even in polar latitudes. However, these milder temperatures do not mean constant heat. The tilt of the Earth still causes long periods of darkness in winter and daylight in summer. To better understand these variations, paleobotanists study fossil trunks that preserve growth rings. Each ring corresponds to the accumulation of wood during 1 year. When the rings are more pronounced, it indicates alternations between rapid growth seasons and periods of rest. In Antarctica, the presence of well-distinct lignified growth circles shows that plants survive dark winters, but not too harsh. The polar forests of the time developed strategies to withstand light frosts and grow in the spring when the light returns. This pronounced seasonality creates numerous ecological niches for wildlife. At the end of the Triassic winter, when the light returns and temperatures warm up, vegetation rapidly resumes growth. Wood-eating insects take the opportunity to colonize the trunks and branches again. Their presence attracts a multitude of other organisms, such as small insectivorous reptiles and other arthropods that feed on eggs or larvae. At the top of the food chain, larger predators, like some carnivorous dinosaurs or omnivorous cynodonts, benefit from these periods of abundance. The increased availability of plant or animal prey generates a strong dynamic in terrestrial ecosystems. The large forested plains, dominated by dicrodium and other seed plants, extend in the lower areas, while the higher regions endure a harsher climate with rapid temperature variations. Between these two extremes, a gradient of habitats promotes biodiversity, which maintains and diversifies. The fossils of Triassic Antarctica thus reveal a living mosaic, unexpected in what is now a frozen desert. One of the most fascinating questions about early Triassic in Antarctica concerns the relative mildness of the winters. How could animals and plants thrive so far south, despite the polar night and potentially low temperatures? Several factors explain this. First, the configuration of the continents was different. The lands of the southern hemisphere were still largely connected, forming a supercontinent that limited the formation of cold ocean currents and promoted water mixing. Then, the high concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, especially carbon dioxide from the Karoo-Ferrer volcanism, helped retain heat on a global scale. Some studies suggest that the presence of shallow waters and flood basins near the intracontinental rift would have created more temperate microclimates. Water bodies store heat in summer and gradually release it in winter. This would have allowed living beings to benefit from a relatively stable environment despite strong light variations. These conditions explain the existence of forests that nevertheless had to slow their metabolism during periods of persistent darkness. The structure of the vegetation at this time illustrates this adaptability well. Dicrodium fossils show lobed leaves with branched veins, optimizing photosynthesis during the reduced light windows in winter and more intense in summer. Some of these plants probably developed dormancy mechanisms, slowing their growth during the dark months to conserve the precious energy stored during the clear season. The abundance of organic matter produced during spring and summer spurts supports a varied food chain. The dead leaves accumulated create a thick humus that favors water retention and the underground life of small creatures. In these rich soils, fungi and bacteria decompose the plant litter, releasing nutrients for the next generation of plants. This cycle of production and decomposition strengthens the resilience of Triassic polar ecosystems while relying on seasonality to shape a constantly evolving landscape. As seasonality sets in and the intracontinental rift continues to widen, the transantarctic mountains undergo tectonic deformations. In certain regions, rock formations from the time retain traces of this geodynamic regime, blending fluvial sediments with buried lava flows. Fossils of Antarctopelta and Thrinaxodon are sometimes found in geological levels that showcase deposits from rivers, temporary lakes, or areas flooded by seasonal overflows. Polar dinosaurs, although less common than those found elsewhere, perfectly illustrate life's ability to redeploy in extreme conditions for the time. The armor of Antarctopelta, composed of robust bony plates, provided protection against predators and suggested a lifestyle adapted to the harshness of winter nights. Thrinaxodon, on the other hand, shows anatomy indicating a good ability to regulate internal temperature, an advantage in the face of seasonal temperature swings. These clues paint a picture of an Antarctica that was surprisingly alive and innovative on the evolutionary front, far removed from the current ice sheet. Despite these adaptations, Triassic Antarctic life faced challenges. The periods of darkness limited photosynthesis, and the dormancy of vegetation reduced food availability for herbivores. To survive, the latter had to store reserves during the good season or migrate to more favorable areas, if the land configuration allowed. However, global warming and the availability of new surfaces created by the retreat of ice caps offered them a relatively stable environment, much more tolerant than what one might imagine today in these regions. This Triassic era in Antarctica is a true laboratory of biological resilience, where one discovers a dynamic flora dominated by dicroidium and an emerging fauna. The paleontological discoveries in the Transantarctic mountains, combined with traces of Karoo-Ferrar volcanism, reveal a continent in full mutation, marked by rift tectonics and episodes of global warming. This combination created a unique patchwork of conditions where life, faced with abrupt changes, was able to adapt and thrive, thus preparing the ground for future evolutions that will mark the geological history of this polar land. By studying the plant and animal fossils of this period, specialists highlight the importance of interactions between climate, geology, and the biosphere. Plants like dicroidium, capable of forming pioneering forests, show how photosynthesis adapted to the limited sunlight hours at polar latitudes. At the same time, the proliferation of wood-eating insects played a key role in the recycling of organic matter and ecosystem dynamics. Trunks colonized by these insects fed entire generations of specialized predators. On the geological front, the volcanic activity of the Karoo-Ferrar testifies to the power of Earth's internal processes at that time. Volcanic gas emissions fueled the greenhouse effect, while lava reshaped the continent's surface. Tectonic transformations created collapsed corridors and basins that, once stabilized, were filled with fossil-rich sediments. Thanks to these deposits, we now have precious archives on the climate and biodiversity of the Antarctic Triassic, which help us better understand the evolution of life in a context of major upheavals. The presence of differentiated growth rings in fossil woods is an essential marker of a well-established seasonal climate. This indicates that, despite prolonged periods of darkness, photosynthesis resumed with the return of light, allowing for the production of wood in annual layers. Winters, although dark, were relatively mild, without permanent frosts, harmful to vegetation, or only for short periods. Recent scientific discoveries support that the great cycles of polar glaciations were less dominant during the early Triassic, giving way to a milder environment. The temperate climate is also explained by the still clustered distribution of the southern hemisphere continents, allowing heat to be trapped around what will become the future Antarctica. Additionally, the global atmospheric circulation, different from what we know, likely limited intense winds at the poles. Under the combined influence of tectonics, volcanism, and the geography of the emerging lands, polar life developed in a fragile balance, where each species played a key role in the system's sustainability. Throughout the Triassic, these interactions forged a rich and astonishing continent that continues to intrigue us today. Following these events chronologically, it is clear that the early Triassic Antarctica was an evolutionary crossroads. Fossils of Antarctopelta show that at these high latitudes, dinosaur lineages were diversifying. Another key testament is the discovery of Thrinaxodon, which allows paleontologists to study the evolution of cynodonts, a group that gave rise to mammals. This seasonal exposure to variations in light and temperature might have stimulated certain physiological mechanisms, foreshadowing specialized adaptations in the millions of years to come. Ecosystems, heavily dependent on plants, find their primal energy in the abundance of dicrodium and other resilient vegetation. Where forests are dense, fauna can establish and diversify. Insects, reptiles, future giant dinosaurs, and ancestors of mammals. Antarctica thus becomes a biological crossroads where fauna and flora experiment with new forms of coexistence. These interactions, combined with geological upheavals, already prepare the next chapter of the planet's story, even if these changes remain slow and gradual on the human scale. For many paleontologists, the early Triassic period in Antarctica remains an incomplete puzzle. Due to current climate conditions, it is often difficult to explore certain regions buried under ice or access essential rock layers. When fossils are discovered, they are generally well preserved in consolidated volcanic sediments or in levels protected from more recent glaciations. Each new polar dinosaur bone and each fragment of fossilized wood helps refine our understanding of the Triassic ecosystem. These clues reveal three major trends: a warmer and moderately humid climate, quite different from what we imagine for Antarctica, active tectonics that open the continental crust and generate large basalt flows, and expanding biodiversity, occupying niches left vacant after the Permian extinction. This precarious balance is crucial for the successful redeployment of polar nature. Studying this era enlightens us on how life revives after a major crisis and adapts to polar constraints. Paleobotanical studies reconstruct an environment of wooded plains, interspersed with primitive conifers and seed ferns similar to dicrodium, bordering seasonal lakes or rivers. In places, solidified lava flows form high plateaus. The relief varies between ancient, moderately eroded mountain ranges and depressions where water accumulates. During the warm season, vegetation explodes, attracting insects, cynodonts, and herbivorous dinosaurs. As the polar winter approaches, part of the forest goes into dormancy, while some animal species slow down their activities or take refuge in shelters, sometimes underground. Despite more favorable conditions than today, the polar night remains a challenge, and Triassic Antarctica is not a paradise without dangers. Sudden climatic fluctuations can occur due to volcanic activity and atmospheric variations. Ecosystems must continually readjust their survival strategies. The best adapted succeed and leave their fossil imprint, while others disappear locally. Thus, over the 51 million years of the Triassic, from 252 to 201 million years ago, Antarctica writes a key chapter in the evolutionary history of living beings. 201 to 145 million years ago, Antarctica, still part of Gondwana in the process of breaking up, enjoyed a mild and humid climate. Large forests thrived under average temperatures close to 20 degrees Celsius, far from the current polar conditions. This striking contrast, confirmed by geological, botanical, and paleontological evidence, reveals a green and temperate continent, very different from the vast icy expanse we know today. In the Jurassic, Antarctica was influenced by superplumes, upwellings of hot material fracturing and thinning the crust. This activity set the stage for the opening of the Weddell Sea. The stretching created large faults, initiating the separation of the lands. The evidence of this process is visible in the current rock sequences, where folds and fractures bear the imprint of these ancient deformations. In the Jurassic, Antarctica was home to vast forests of Chirolepidaceae conifers, favored by a mild and humid climate. Fossils of petrified wood, as well as spores and pollen discovered in the Queen Alexandra Range, attest to these dense ecosystems, despite the succession of polar days and nights due to the southern position. The study of fossilized spores and pollens unveils the extent of the Chirolepidaceae forests in the Jurassic. Adapted to the light variations and polar temperature shifts, these conifers disperse their pollen by wind. Their abundance in the Queen Alexandra Range attests to an extensive vegetative cover, long before the current icy landscape. The Antarctic seas were home to streamlined ichthyosaurs and long-necked plesiosaurs, perfectly adapted to cold waters and polar light variations. The fossils found, vertebrae, flippers, and skulls, reveal the existence of diverse and well-established marine communities in these high latitudes. These seas also harbored endemic ammonites like Antarcticus, adapted to cool waters. Fossilized in sediments, they provide insights into biodiversity and serve as chronological markers, their rapid evolution allowing for precise dating of rock strata. The Jurassic Antarctic was not always stable. Scientists have identified anoxic episodes, marked by a depletion of oxygen in certain ocean regions, leading to localized extinctions or profound biodiversity upheavals. One of the most notable, the Jenkins event, was a global anoxic interval from the middle to late Jurassic. In the Larsen Basin, along the Antarctic Peninsula, dark layers formed from fine sediments mixed with plankton and plant debris reveal a significant accumulation of biological carbon. These deposits indicate a marked slowdown in deep decomposition and prolonged stagnation of waters in some basins. To explain these anoxic episodes, several factors come into play. First, the magmatic activity of superplumes releases significant amounts of greenhouse gases, permanently altering the atmosphere. Then, the evolution of ocean currents and geography disrupts the oxygenation of deep basins. Nutrients from erosion or volcanism stimulate plankton blooms, whose decomposition depletes oxygen, restricting the habitat of sensitive species. This favors microorganisms capable of surviving in oxygen-poor waters, thus altering marine chemistry. The lessons of the Jenkins event shed light on the climatic and ecological dynamics of the Earth. Although the Jurassic differs from today, the study of these anoxia phases reveals how life and climate switch when oxygenation reaches a critical threshold. In Antarctica, the Larsen Basin retains, in its sediments laden with microfossils and organic molecules, the memory of these upheavals, offering researchers keys to understanding the fragility and resilience of marine ecosystems. Sedimentary deposits rich in organic matter often appear in fine black layers, alternating with sandstone or limestone layers, indicating oxic and anoxic cycles. These alternations reveal the history of climate variations, sea levels, and phases of high biological productivity. By combining surface observations and drilling, geologists reconstruct the precise chronology of these episodes. In the Jurassic Antarctic, these intervals, although long, seem to have experienced rapid upheavals. What is striking is the ability of marine life to reorganize after each period of low oxygenation. The diversity of ammonites fluctuates. Some lineages disappear, others more resilient or migratory thrive. Bony and cartilaginous fish change their distribution. Large marine reptiles, like ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs, were probably mobile enough to reach more favorable areas, allowing some populations to survive elsewhere and then recolonize affected regions. In this context, geography plays a major role in the distribution of species. The gradual opening of the Weddell Sea is still accompanied by land bridges connecting Antarctica to neighboring continents, promoting animal migrations and flora exchanges. Without circumpolar currents, the ocean circulation, less vigorous than today, mixed the waters in a more limited way. On the shores and in the nearby plains, other forms of terrestrial life, less documented, probably already existed. Fossil footprints reveal insects, small reptiles, and primitive dinosaurs frequenting the forests. Rarer, their remains have often been erased by erosion, marine sedimentation, or glacial activity. Yet each new discovery refines the reconstruction of this ecosystem. Antarctic Jurassic emerges, through these discoveries, as a dynamic and contrasting world. A superplume, similar to a giant chimney, fragments the continent, influencing climate and ocean circulation. The conifers Chirolepidaceae thrive under a long summer light, while endemic ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and ammonites dominate the southern seas. Anoxic intervals mark the Larsen Basin with black sediments, rich in organic matter, witnesses of ecological disturbances revealing the fragility of an apparently stable equilibrium. By exploring these deposits, paleontologists and geologists unveil the subtle mechanisms of the Antarctic Jurassic. Each sample, placed in its context, sheds light on the expansion of the Weddell Sea, the organization of polar forests, or marine mortalities due to lack of oxygen. Volcanic dust and emissions sometimes reinforce the greenhouse effect, warming the surface waters, stimulating plankton proliferation, and aggravating anoxia to the point of transforming ecosystems. We imagine thick carpets of vegetation where conifers dominate an undergrowth without flowers, which only appear in the Cretaceous. In lagoons and shallow seas, clear water reflects a low sun on the horizon. The large reptiles hunt fish and cephalopods. During anoxic episodes, communities relocate or disappear. Only the most resistant survive. When oxygen returns, life is reborn, stemming from ancient lineages or species from elsewhere. These natural clues form a living narrative on the resilience and transformation of Antarctic biodiversity. Fossilized Chirolepidaceae evoke the firm ground, while ammonites, ichthyosaurs, and plesiosaurs testify to the oceans. Organic sediments reveal anoxic crises, offering a window into a chaotic past. Each excavation season enriches our understanding of polar ecosystems and climatic balances. This journey into Jurassic Antarctica, long before its glaciation, illustrates the variability of the Earth. Mantle superplumes reveal how internal activity shapes tectonics, water distribution, reliefs, and life. The opening of the Weddell Sea participates in the vast movement of fragmentation leading to the current geography. Conifer forests and marine fauna testify to a milder climate, while anoxic intervals remind us of the fragility of oceanic balances when chemistry, nutrients, and circulation become disrupted. Between 201 and 145 million years ago, Antarctica was a contrasting territory, animated by intense geological dynamics and rich biodiversity. Forests rose under a polar sky, while large marine predators roamed Jurassic waters. The deposits of the Larsen Basin hold the memory of times when oxygen was scarce in the depths. Each extracted sediment core reveals a new chapter, reminding us that tectonics, climate, and life continuously transform our planet. Today, researchers explore this period to connect past and present. From this angle, the Antarctic Jurassic serves as a natural laboratory, revealing the diversity of ancient worlds. climate, topography, and biosphere were shaped by Earth's internal forces and external dynamics. Here, mantle heat influxes, the opening of the Weddell Sea, and periodic anoxic events succeed each other. After this era, the Cretaceous continued the polar isolation of Antarctica. This Jurassic epoch marks a turning point already bearing the major features of the southern Earth. Thus ends the journey through the Antarctic Jurassic. We are now in the Cretaceous, a period that extends from about 145 to 66 million years ago. At this time, Antarctica still occupies a unique position within the supercontinent Gondwana, which also includes Australia, South America, Africa, and India. It's a period of significant changes, where the Earth's crust fractures and creates new routes. Here, we will explore how Antarctica gradually separates from other continental blocks while undergoing a unique climatic evolution. We will also examine the fauna and flora that marked this age. At the beginning of the Cretaceous, Gondwana still presented a vast set of united land masses. However, powerful tectonic forces had been silently working for millennia, causing the formation of deep fractures called rifts at certain points of the continent. A key event is the gradual opening of the Tasman Rift between Australia and Antarctica. As this rift widens, the land plates shift, moving Australia northward and outlining future separation lines. The first faults in the Wilkes Land region testify to this budding movement. These tectonic processes are due to convection movements in the Earth's mantle, the layer beneath the crust, where internal heat causes displacements of matter. Continents, like giant rocky rafts, drift in response to these internal dynamics. Observing today's Antarctica, it's hard to imagine that it was once covered with lush vegetation. Yet, during the Cretaceous, the opening of the Tasman Rift and the position of the land masses favored a generally warm, even subtropical climate at high latitudes. The term greenhouse climate is often used to describe the atmosphere of the Cretaceous. Scientific estimates, based on fossil plant analysis and marine sediments, suggest that temperatures could exceed 22 degrees Celsius, even at latitudes as high as 70 degrees south. In this context, Antarctica was nothing like the frozen continent we know today. Ecosystems thrived there, supported by a mild and humid climate. To better understand this surprising environment, one needs to observe the flora that dominated it. Among the iconic trees, there is the genus Nothofagus, sometimes called the southern beech. These evergreen trees thrived under reduced seasonal sunlight, as winters were long and polar nights were significant at high latitude. However, the atmosphere remained sufficiently temperate to support dense vegetation. The Nothofagus forests hosted a diverse environment, with undergrowth, ferns, and mosses. This plant cover played an essential role in regulating the local climate. These forests extended close to the South Pole, inhabited by equally astonishing fauna. There were so-called polar dwarf dinosaurs, such as Leoelinosaura, a small bipedal herbivore, and Cryolophosaurus, a more imposing predator. The adjective polar refers to their ability to live in highly seasonal environments, with sunlight varying significantly throughout the year. These dinosaurs likely had strategies to withstand the decreased winter light, whether through migration, physiology, or growth rhythms. Leoelinosaura, for example, is distinguished by a long tail, ensuring stability and balance, as well as relatively large eye sockets, suggesting good vision in the dark. Cryolophosaurus, on the other hand, is recognizable by its bony crest on the skull, whose precise function is still debated. Some see it as a sexual ornament, others as a means of thermoregulation or group communication. In any case, the presence of these animals in previously extremely cold regions testifies to a much milder climatic past. Besides dinosaurs, fossil pollinating insects bear witness to the emergence of new forms of vegetation. These arthropods, equipped with specialized adaptations, transported pollen from one plant to another, contributing to floral diversification. It was during this period that the first angiosperms, or flowering plants, began to spread at high latitudes. The appearance of these species remains an active research topic because it raises the question of how a plant group typically associated with temperate or tropical environments was able to establish itself in areas with strong seasonal variations of light and temperature. Scientists believe that the development of polar angiosperms was greatly favored by the relatively mild conditions of the time. When temperatures remained above zero for much of the year, the reproductive cycle of flowering plants could successfully occur. Moreover, the long summers, although punctuated by periods of low light, probably offered sufficient sunlight peaks for photosynthesis. The evolution of these plant communities thus occurred gradually, parallel to continental drift, which either brought certain regions closer to or further from the equator and solar heat sources. The fragmentation of Gondwana is not an isolated event. It is part of a vast reorganization of tectonic plates that would influence the future distribution of oceans and continents. Globally, this fragmentation alters marine and atmospheric currents. As the continents drift apart, ocean circulation intensifies in certain areas, accentuating climatic contrasts that are difficult to predict in the long term. In the Cretaceous, however, the general trend is one of global warming, sometimes referred to as a prolonged greenhouse effect, to which organisms must quickly adapt to survive. A crucial aspect of this history is how marine life reacts to this unusual climate. When ocean temperatures reach over 20 degrees C in certain high-latitude seas, marine communities diversify. Corals develop in areas unimaginable today, while some marine reptiles continue to evolve in these temperate waters. Additionally, the proliferation of plankton, including microscopic algae, is favored by these warm conditions, supporting a complex food web that benefits fish, mollusks, and large predators. However, during this same Cretaceous period, the planet experiences geological and climatic disturbances, already foreshadowing future upheavals. Sea level fluctuations are observed, linked not only to the melting or formation of continental ice, but also to tectonics, which alter the geometry of ocean basins. The border regions of Antarctica sometimes experience significant marine transgressions, submerging continental areas. This alternation between shallow seas and successive emergences affects species distribution, favoring isolation or migration, depending on the periods. At the end of the Cretaceous, a major crisis profoundly marks the living world. It is the Cretaceous Paleogene crisis. This mass extinction event is linked to the impact of an asteroid in what is now the Gulf of Mexico. The effects on the biosphere are considerable and lead to the disappearance of a large part of the non-avian dinosaurs. In Antarctica, this distant impact does not spare the local organisms. Deposits of spherules, small droplets of vaporized material during the collision, are found on the Maud Rise Plateau, indicating that the shockwaves spread on a global scale. The regional consequences of this impact manifest as rapid alterations in the food chain, the disappearance of certain key species, and a disruption of ecological cycles in Antarctica. Although extinctions there are less spectacular than in tropical zones, the polar continent undergoes a prolonged shock. Surviving populations, whether marine vertebrates, primitive birds, or invertebrates, must adapt to recomposing ecosystems. This crisis marks the end of the era of great Antarctic dinosaurs and opens the way to the gradual emergence of modern fauna. The fragmentation of Gondwana largely set the stage for this shift. As the continent disintegrates, habitats fragment, marine corridors form, and animal populations begin to isolate. In this context, the Cretaceous Paleogene crisis acts as a catalyst for rapid changes. Although the asteroid impact is the main factor for extinction, the tectonic and climatic dynamics preceding this event already weaken many biological communities. Thus, after 66 million years, the planet undergoes a radical transformation. To conclude this chapter on the Cretaceous and the fragmentation of Gondwana, it is essential to note that Antarctica has been a key site to observe the combined effects of intense continental drift and global warming. Scientists continue their research to reconstruct the Cretaceous Antarctic environment. Fossil sites discovered on the continent, notably in the Transantarctic Mountains, offer valuable clues about the richness of past life. Paleontologists highlight the coexistence of small primitive mammals and dominant dinosaurs, both adapted to polar conditions. The bones extracted from sediments reveal information on individual growth, dietary habits, and seasonal migrations. For example, the study of growth, rings in bone sections, similar to those in trees, allows the deduction of periods of metabolic slowdown or acceleration linked to a milder climate. These discoveries testify to the resilience of life in the face of Cretaceous environmental variations. Through these clues, we perceive the dynamics of a changing world, where the gradual separation of Australia and Antarctica is accompanied by a biological boom. Paleobotanists, by analyzing fossil remains of flowers and plants, highlight the expansion of angiosperms in the southern latitudes. Geologists, for their part, document the excavation of rifts and the increasing northward drift of Australia. The Cretaceous thus presents itself as a crossroads of geological, climatic, and biological transformations, laying the foundation for what Antarctica will become in subsequent eras. At the dawn of Antarctic formation, the temperatures, cooler than those in the tropics, are far from the current icy climate. Emerging from the end Cretaceous extinction, the Earth experiences a natural greenhouse effect due to carbon dioxide, warming the entire globe. The Antarctic lands, bathed in bright summers and darkened winters, host mixed forests in a mild but non-tropical climate. Over time, Antarctica becomes isolated, notably through the disappearance of the land bridge still connecting Tasmania and Australia until about 55 million years ago. A remnant of the supercontinent Gondwana, this link fragments due to tectonic movements. Its erasure initiates a new sub-Antarctic oceanic circulation around the South Pole, whose cold currents will later become essential to the maintenance of the polar ice cap. In the heart of the Eocene, between 56 and 34 million years before our era, a significant episode occurs, the Middle Eocene climatic optimum, MECO. The high temperatures allow subtropical vegetation to flourish even in high latitudes. In Antarctica, palm trees thrived, as evidenced by fossils from Seymour Island near the Antarctic Peninsula. These same layers contain pollen, spores, and remains of animals from humid and temperate forests. The Eocene Antarctic fauna was rich. Fossils indicate the presence of archaic mammals, including a primitive lineage of marsupials, ancestors of modern forms in Australia and South America. Probably arriving via still-connected continents, they thrived in a mild climate at the heart of fern forests, and thickets of ancient trees, which offered them food and shelter. The Eocene Antarctic fauna was rich. Fossils indicate the presence of archaic mammals, including a primitive lineage of marsupials, ancestors of modern forms in Australia and South America. Probably arriving via still-connected continents, they thrived in a mild climate at the heart of fern forests and thickets of ancient trees, which offered them food and shelter. Towards the end of the Eocene, a major shift occurs. The gradual opening of marine passages with Australia and then South America thermally isolates Antarctica, while CO2 concentration decreases due to the weathering of rocks and landforms. The climate cools, forcing ecosystems to adapt. Dense forests and palm trees give way to vegetation that better tolerates the cold. The first tundra-like grasslands appear, dominated by cold-resistant herbaceous plants that can withstand low winter light. Low and almost treeless, they host mosses, lichens, and a few flowering plants. More humid in summer, but much less lush than the vanished forests, they bear witness to life's adaptation to a declining climate. Amidst these changes, a group of seabirds thrives in the Antarctic seas, the penguins. Unlike the auks of the northern hemisphere, they quickly evolved to occupy the southern ocean. Among them, Paleozoic Klikowski, a giant over 1.75 meters tall, dove deeply with its wing flippers, retaining heat better and accessing vital resources during the cooling climate. Discovered in the Antarctic Peninsula and its surroundings, the fossils of these giant penguins reveal robust birds capable of facing contrasting polar seasons. They illustrate the exploitation of niches in the Southern Ocean before the Great Cooling. In the Paleogene, marine ecosystems thrive. Nascent currents, abundant plankton, fish, and cephalopods support a food chain leading to large predators. At the end of the Eocene, tundra-like grasslands and lines of large penguins establish themselves, marking a new balance. The retreat of palms transforms humid subtropical forests into formations more resistant to cold. Reptiles and terrestrial mammals decline, archaic marsupials migrate north, while seabirds thrive in a changing polar environment. Climate variations result from a combination of factors: fluctuations in greenhouse gases, the configuration of continents influencing ocean currents, and slight orbital variations alternating warm or cool periods. In the Middle Eocene, these elements maintain a warm and humid climate even in the high latitudes, fostering remarkable biodiversity. Forests, swimming birds, invertebrates, fish, and primitive cetaceans thrive, while a high sea level floods parts of the continent, creating a dynamic coastline. The beginning of the cooling is not abrupt, but spans several million years, with some accelerations. The opening of the seas isolates Antarctica, and ocean currents begin swirling around it, blocking temperate waters. The continent then begins its descent into the Ice Age, with permanent sea ice appearing only in the Oligocene. The fauna takes a turn. Seabirds, like the proto-penguins, diversify their forms to adapt to colder shores, while temperate cold water fish thrive. Many terrestrial species lose their habitats and migrate or disappear. Australia, still connected to Antarctica, sees its environments evolve, while polar ecosystems become isolated from warm regions. Vegetation shifts from mixed forests to more open habitats. Palms gradually retreat with the shrinking wetlands and harsher polar winters. Fossils of deciduous trees reveal marked seasonal contrasts. Small forests of hardy conifers survive in protected valleys, while plateaus become too cold or dry. In the changing climate of the Middle Eocene, marine species sensitive to cold decline, while the more resilient thrive. Ancestors of whales and seals explore Antarctic waters, and planktonic crustaceans flourish thanks to ocean mixing that enriches nutrients. The large penguins dominate the shores, attesting to an Antarctica once flourishing, temperate but already in transition. The rapid exhumation of the transantarctic mountains and their sedimentary deposits illustrate the impact of internal forces on Antarctic morphology. Fluvial erosion forms molasse, typical of mountainous forelands, shaping valleys and channels for nascent polar winds. This emerging topography channels air masses and will have a lasting impact on temperatures, glaciation, and terrestrial habitats. At the end of the Eocene, the warmth of the Paleogene fades. Fossil pollen attests to the retreat of subtropical plants and the advancement of more reduced formations. The warm fauna declines, replaced by mammals poorly adapted to the new conditions. Penguins, however, take advantage of the sea, perfecting swimming to exploit marine productivity and escape the harsher terrestrial climate. Thus ends the Paleocene-Eocene, marked by heat and the early stages of major cooling. One can imagine the end of this era: carved valleys, low forests, tundra grasslands, large penguins on the shores, and still welcoming sea. But already cooling, reorganization of circulations, and the retreat of terrestrial life are on the horizon. The transantarctic mountains prepare for the expansion of ice, soon amplified by the cold oceanic current, heralding the Oligocene ice sheet. Between 34 and 23 million years ago, the Oligocene marks a turning point for Antarctica. The opening of the Drake Passage, around 34 million years ago, gives rise to the powerful Antarctic circumpolar current, accentuating the cooling started in the Eocene. We will see here how this stage makes the ice sheet inevitable, and how the fauna, especially marine, adapts to a continent in full transformation. The break of the Drake Passage separates Antarctica from South America. Previously, a continental bridge blocked oceanic circulation, maintaining a milder polar climate. Its opening creates a continuous maritime corridor. The Antarctic circumpolar current is born, isolating the continent from warm air masses and strongly accentuating its cooling. The Antarctic circumpolar current, a vast ring of cold waters, acts as a thermal barrier, cutting Antarctica off from the lower latitudes. Before the opening of the Drake Passage, exchanges of heat and precipitation still tempered its climate. Now isolated, the continent sees the cold settle, sea ice extend, and the first signs of a permanent ice sheet appear. The transition to a landscape dominated by ice is confirmed by the study of oxygen isotopes in the tests of foraminifera, microshells of marine organisms. During a cooling, the fresh water trapped in the ice modifies their isotopic composition. Fossils from the Oligocene show an increase in the heavy isotope, indicating the formation of a large ice sheet, notably in the Wilkes Marine region in eastern Antarctica. A marine ice sheet is a vast layer of ice resting on a rocky bed below sea level. It can extend beyond the coasts and float, forming shelves or barriers holding back the interior ice. During the Oligocene, their accumulation and extension mark a key step towards the current polar landscape. The Antarctic ice sheet and sea level are linked to eustatic variations, i.e., global changes due to the quantity of ice and the thermal expansion of the oceans. In the Oligocene, the expansion of ice lowers the sea, modifying polar coastlines. In the Ross Sea, thick sedimentary layers of subglacial fans, formed by flows and slides under the ice, testify to rapid advances and retreats of the ice sheet according to climatic cycles. The cooling associated with the Antarctic circumpolar current forces many species to evolve in the face of longer winters, extensive sea ice, and reduced surface food. Some groups thrive, like the ancestors of monk seals, pinnipeds with a fold of skin resembling a hood, which begin to occupy niches adapted to the cold or icy waters of the Oligocene. The ancestors of baleen whales diversify. Devoid of teeth, they filter water thanks to keratin baleen fixed to the upper jaw. The Eocetidae, an extinct family, combine rudimentary teeth and nascent baleen, marking the transition to modern forms. In the productive waters around the sea ice, this adaptation optimizes the exploitation of plankton and organic debris. During the Oligocene, the Southern Ocean experienced marked cycles. During cooling periods, the sea ice expanded and covered the sea with seasonal or perennial ice. During warming periods, it retreated, briefly revealing highly productive zones. These alternations transform the shores, providing refuges and breeding areas for pinnipeds and exerting selective pressure on monk seals and baleen whales as they adapted. The Oligocene is not only characterized by the isolation of Antarctica and the formation of its ice cap, it is also marked by significant global atmospheric upheavals. On the continent, low temperatures settled unevenly. Oxygen isotopes indicate that, on some coasts, summers remained slightly positive, allowing cold-adapted flora to persist. Inside, cooling fueled the formation of large ice masses, notably the East Antarctic ice cap. The climate, drier, is accentuated by the barrier effect of the transpolar mountains. Precipitation, rare, falls mainly as snow, causing the ice to grow over time. Deep water circulation evolved with this climate change. The opening of the Drake Passage and the birth of the Antarctic circumpolar current transformed thermohaline circulation, regulated by temperature and salinity. As the Antarctic ice cap grew, it released significant amounts of cold meltwater, which sank due to density, mixing water masses, renewing nutrients, and influencing global marine fauna. The consolidation of the ice cap in the Oligocene created new, deep, cold water masses, initiating modern ocean circulation. Antarctica then became not only isolated but also a global climate driver, influencing as far as the tropics through major marine loops. In coastal areas and on the sea ice, life concentrated around key points. Rocky beaches and coastal ice sheltered marine mammals, while the polar summer favored microalgae, including silicious-shelled diatoms. Well preserved in sediments, they provide insight into biological productivity and the transition to a polar environment. Pillars of the food chain, they feed krill, which in turn support whales and other marine predators. The rise of the Antarctic glacial world thus restructured the food chain, from plankton to marine mammals. Among pinnipeds, monk seals occupied various ecological niches, coastal and icy. They hunted fish, squids, and crustaceans in ice-free zones, then migrated when the sea ice reformed. The few fossils found indicate that their diversification dates back to the Oligocene in several ocean basins. The cool conditions, seasonal ice crusts, and the gradual isolation of Antarctica shaped a lifestyle alternating between resting and reproducing on land and hunting at sea. Today, monk, leopard, and crab-eater seals share key adaptations: a thick insulating layer of blubber and the ability to dive for extended periods to feed. In this ecological mosaic, eustatic variations play a major role. The advance or retreat of the glacial front reshapes the shoreline, forming new basins or submerging habitats. The movement of ice masses also sculpts the ocean floor, carving subglacial canyons that direct currents and shelter filter-feeding invertebrates, cold water corals, and sponges. In the Oligocene, ice trapped parts of the seawater, making Antarctic waters less salty than those in the tropics. These salinity gradients, combined with environmental instability, however, offered opportunities to species capable of adapting. To reconstruct these environments, scientists study sediment cores taken from the marine subsurface, witnesses of millions of years of accumulation. Each layer corresponds to an era and contains microfossils, pollen, shell fragments, and oxygen isotopes. Associated with ice cores from East Antarctica, they allow the assessment of the ice cap's development speed and past climate variations. On the continental margins, particularly in the Ross Sea, strata reveal ancient glacial expansions, tillites and turbidity deposits linked to sudden ice movement. The term eustatic collapse refers to a rapid drop in sea level, causing a synchronous global shift in shorelines. In the Oligocene, these events accompany the rapid growth of the Antarctic ice sheet, which retains more water. In the Ross Sea, large subglacial fans form when rivers of sediment, sand, gravel, boulders, and clay, carried under the ice, suddenly pour into the ocean. These brief but intense deposits mark the rapid advance of an ice flow, followed by a sudden release, before a gradual return to equilibrium between ice and sea level. The Neogene, between 23 and 2.6 million years ago, marks profound upheavals in Antarctica. It includes two epochs, the Miocene and the Pliocene. We will follow a chronological narrative, from the warm Middle Miocene, with its reduced ice sheet, to the rise of volcanism in the West Antarctic Rift, and the diversification of modern penguins. Then will come the warming of the Pliocene, the instability of the West Antarctic ice sheet, and the establishment of the dry valleys, a glacial desert with almost no precipitation. During the warm Middle Miocene, around 15 million years ago, the Earth experienced marked warming. Antarctica, although polar, was not covered by continuous ice. Fossils reveal the retreat of some ice sheets, freeing areas of land. In this setting appear cryptogamic forests, mosses, algae, and ferns, spore-bearing plants adapted to moderate cold and lack of water. The dry valleys, sheltered from harsh weather by their terrain, offer a refuge where ice does not dominate permanently. Here, dense vegetation thrived on slopes and valley floors, forming actual low forests, capable of surviving longer and milder polar summers than today. In the Miocene, Antarctica is also marked by activity in the West Antarctic Rift, an area where tectonic plates spread apart, thinning the crust and promoting faults and magma uprisings. This movement gradually builds Mount Erebus, an active volcano on Ross Island. The volcanic construction results from repeated eruptions, accumulating lava and debris in layered sequences. In this segmented rift, the lithosphere stretches and fractures. Subglacial basaltic flows form when magma meets ice or water, trapped under the ice sheet. This causes rapid and sometimes explosive cooling, leaving distinctive rock textures. These phenomena sculpt the landscape and release volcanic gases, altering the regional geography without disrupting the already milder climate. In these changing landscapes, marine fauna also evolved. During the Neogene, penguins saw their giant ancestors disappear in favor of species similar to those today. This era sees the rise of the genera Aptenidites, emperor royal penguins, and Pegasilus, Adelie, Gentoo, and chinstrap penguins. Natural selection, influenced by climate, marine resources, and hunting methods, favors more modest sizes, optimized for swimming, diving, and reproducing on cool coasts. New ocean currents and the shifting distribution of fish schools accentuate the specialization of these lineages. After the Miocene, the Pliocene marks a turning point with phases of global warming. The average temperature reaches up to 3 degrees higher than today, and carbon dioxide levels far exceed pre-industrial levels. In Antarctica, the western ice sheet, resting on a rock base below sea level, becomes unstable and vulnerable to warm waters. The retreat of the melting boundary causes ice losses and fragmentation, allowing the ocean to penetrate further. Marine sediments then reveal numerous IRD deposits, rocky debris released by the melting of drifting icebergs. This indicates frequent calving and intense coastal erosion. The mineralogical study of these gravels allows identifying their origin and tracing the evolution of glacial zones. At the end of the Pliocene, a global cooling restores a stable polar climate, a prelude to the Pleistocene and its great glaciations. Before this shift, Antarctica sees the aridity of its ice-free areas increase. The dry valleys at the base of the transantarctic mountains become one of the driest places on Earth, receiving less than a few millimeters of water per year. Protected from clouds by the topography and deprived of moist air by polar circulation, they remain icy, without surface glaciers, with bare rock and frozen sediments, where sublimation surpasses any liquid runoff. In this polar and dry environment, particular processes appear, such as cryoturbation. Cryoturbation refers to soil movements and mixing caused by the freeze-thaw cycle. Even slight temperature variations lift, wrinkle, or fracture the surface layer, creating polygonal structures or small faults. Without dense vegetation, wind and cold shape unique soils, polar geosols or aridosols, poor in life but sometimes inhabited by extremophile microorganisms. These environments, similar to some areas of Mars, captivate scientists. As the Pliocene progresses, glacial regimes intensify, but unevenly. The Antarctic climate remains influenced by Milankovitch cycles, variations in Earth's orbit that alter the seasonal distribution of solar energy. These rhythms shape the extent of the ice sheet and the dynamics of the Antarctic circumpolar current, key to global ocean circulation. Between the warm Miocene and the warming of the Pliocene, Antarctica experiences several milder phases, potentially accelerating ice melt and raising sea levels. Once the ice stabilizes, the dry valleys freeze into nearly sterile zones, swept by katabatic winds that prevent any lasting glacial cover. On the coastal margins, marine fauna reorganizes. Cold water reefs remain rare, but sea urchins, crustaceans, and mollusks shift their ranges. Antarctic cod, called Notothenia, perfect their antifreeze proteins, retaining this adaptation even during milder phases. Fossil records also reveal the appearance of primitive petrels and skuas, taking advantage of summer-exposed coasts. The partial retreat of ice allows for the establishment of temporary lakes and lagoons, with sediments preserving pollen and spores, evidence of ancient mosses and ferns. Stable isotopes in marine shells provide clues about temperature and salinity. These natural archives offer a key to understanding Neogene climate variability and testing models that simulate the dynamics of vast ice sheets. The formation of Mount Erebus reminds us that Antarctica, despite its ice, remains a geologically active territory. Its dark basaltic lavas, rich in ferromagnesian minerals, can sometimes flow beneath the ice sheet, creating domes, tunnels, and ash projections typical of subglacial eruptions. During the Miocene and Pliocene, Erebus, already active, caused localized melting, hydrothermal networks, and deep-water pockets, offering researchers a unique ground to study microbial life and water circulation in extreme environments. Ice variations in the Miocene and Pliocene alternate between advances and retreats, temporary glaciations and deglaciations, allowing vegetation communities to settle and then disappear at times. Despite these oscillations, the trend remains toward ice sheet expansion and reduction of habitable areas. The last major warm episodes still favor limited terrestrial life and witness the specialization of current penguins, supported by increased marine productivity in coastal waters. By the end of the Miocene and Pliocene, Antarctica adopts the stable polar physiognomy of the Pleistocene. Yet some valleys still harbored cryptogams and sparse vegetation, while ephemeral lakes gathered insects and microorganisms. Penguins refined their swimming and diving, forsaking large size. The West Antarctic ice sheet, resting below sea level, remained vulnerable to warm ocean waters, an issue that remains crucial for understanding current melting risks. The formation of the hyper-arid cold desert of the dry valleys closes the Neogene. Here, there is almost no snow. Violent winds, constant cold, and soils so dry that only lichens and microscopic algae survive, sometimes under stones, are noted. The aridity preserves geological structures, while cryoturbation shapes the soil into polygons or upheavals, illustrating the power of seasonal freeze on the polar landscape. At the end of these events, Antarctica adopts a glacial physiognomy close to that of today. Between 2.6 and 0.3 million years ago, Antarctica underwent significant climatic upheavals. The glacial cycles transitioned from 41,000 to 100,000 years. To trace this history, researchers analyzed cores extracted during deep drilling, particularly at Dome C. Their air bubbles and isotopic composition, measured via delta D and delta 18O, reveal the alternation in the early Pleistocene of long cold phases and more temperate periods, reshaping the polar ice caps. During the glacial cycles, a significant part of the seawater froze in Antarctica, lowering ocean levels and modifying the ice shelf. The cores from Dome C, analyzed for their hydrogen isotopes, delta D and oxygen, delta 18O, reveal the evolution of temperatures and precipitation. Antarctica, very sensitive to thermal variations, influences the Earth's energy balance. The extension or retreat of its ice cap results from astronomical cycles and atmospheric feedback related to CO2 and methane. A significant stage of this climatic cycle is the maximum extension of the Ross ice shelf during marine isotope stage 16, a cold phase identified by its isotopic signal. The ice advanced spectacularly there, possibly reaching the latitude of 53 degrees south. While the shelf is now a floating platform connected to the continent, it extended well beyond its current limits at that time. This illustrates the power of the glacial climate and the Antarctic ice cap's ability to expand during coolings and heavy snowfall. Variations in the ice cap greatly influenced marine life. Glacier ecosystems, already populated by species adapted to extreme cold, continually adjusted to the advances and retreats of the ice. When the ice shelf and plateau extended, the light diminished, slowing the growth of phytoplankton, the base of the food chain. This drop directly affected krill, a key link between plankton and major predators, such as seals and whales. Among the prominent mammals of Antarctica, the Weddell seal plays a central role. During the early Pleistocene, it likely altered its range according to sea ice variations. Recognizable by its ability to dig and maintain breathing holes in the ice, it followed the ice margins during intense cooling periods. These expansions forced the species to adapt reproduction, hunting, and movement. When the ice shelf retreated, access to resources changed, sometimes forcing colonies to travel long distances or to gather near polynyas. These areas of open water created by winds or currents. Fluctuations in their population directly reflected the variability of the polar climate. Beneath the icy surface of Antarctica lies the subglacial lakes, a world invisible to explorers. These are reservoirs of liquid water buried under several kilometers of ice, protected from atmospheric variations. Among the best known are the vast Lake Vostok, revealed through geophysical surveys and drilling, and Lake Mercer, smaller but just as representative of subterranean processes. Their origin rests on a simple principle. The pressure of the ice on the deep layers, combined with the heat from the Earth's mantle, melts the ice in contact with the bedrock. This gradual melting creates a mass of trapped water beneath the ice cap, which can circulate between multiple basins connected by channels or remain isolated, forming a closed ecosystem devoid of sunlight. Although isolated, the subglacial lakes could host microbes adapted to the extreme cold. Nutrients, geothermal heat, and long-term isolation create favorable conditions. Analyses of Lake Vostok have revealed biological signatures, the origin of which is still debated. Near the Ross Sea, Lake Mercer intrigues with its chemistry and its interest in the study of extreme life. These environments shed light on the Antarctic climate history and evoke the icy worlds of the solar system. In the early Pleistocene, Antarctica alternated between a massive ice cap advancing toward the ocean and phases of retreat, revealing less hostile coasts. Isotopic records, derived from ice and marine sediments, show that with each advance, the ice thickened and cooled the atmosphere by increasing the albedo. During warmings, the melt released fresh water into the ocean, altering the thermohaline circulation, this global network of deep currents that redistributes heat. Antarctica thus acted as a climate regulator on a planetary scale. During marine isotopic stage 16, the ice sheet reached a record extension. Exceptionally low temperatures favored an accumulation of ice, such that the sea ice covered hundreds of kilometers of ocean. Central Antarctica, plunged into extreme cold, remained almost uninhabitable. However, some northern coasts enjoyed slightly positive summers, offering a temporary refuge to marine and migratory species. In these extreme conditions, microscopic algae and aquatic plants took advantage of seasonal melting periods to bloom in vast planktonic blooms. As soon as the sea ice reformed, this primary production dropped, leading to a rapid adjustment of the species that fed on it. Krill directly experienced these variations, and with it, the entire range of marine predators, from polar fish to cetaceans. Weddell seals, fur seals, and ancestral penguins had to adapt their reproduction to these constraints, sometimes advancing or delaying the mating season, or moving to areas richer in plankton and small fish. The study of sediment cores from the Southern Ocean reveals deposits of glacial rafts, formed when icebergs transport rocks and sediments before melting. Their analysis shows calving peaks, notably during marine isotopic stage 16, indicating a vast and dynamic ice sheet. These calving events altered the salinity and surface temperature, disrupting ocean circulation and interacting with the global climate. Around 300,000 years before our time, Antarctica remained a polar continent dominated by ice. The 41,000-year cycles had given way to longer cycles of 100,000 years, marking the subsequent glaciations by alternations of cooling and interglacial periods. On land, the rare rock outcrops and dry valleys still experienced extreme conditions, even during milder periods. Only particularly resilient forms of life found refuge there. At sea, species adapted to cold waters continued their survival by adjusting to polar constraints. Seals, seabirds, and a multitude of Antarctic benthic invertebrates modified reproduction, diving, and feeding to adapt. In the great history of the Earth, this period still precedes the appearance of Homo sapiens, who will emerge elsewhere, notably in Africa, between 300,000 and 200,000 years before our time. Antarctica remains then a distant, icy territory, entirely devoid of human presence. However, its role in global climate regulation is already crucial. The vast ice sheets, by their whiteness reflecting sunlight, accentuate cooling. When they retreat during milder phases, they release fresh water into the oceans, subtly but profoundly influencing ocean circulation. This immense continent, remote from most inhabited lands but central in climatic balance, fascinates us today, even if, 300,000 years ago, our ancestors had no knowledge of it. Imagine sailing in the southern seas, long before the emergence of modern human societies. In the austral summer, the sea ice would extend as far as the eye could see, streaked with cracks, slowly drifting under the influence of winds and currents. Around you, immense glaciers would rush into the ocean, releasing icebergs of colossal dimensions. On the surface, Weddell seals would follow the opening of open waters, hunting in dark, plankton-rich waters, nourished by seasonal blooms of microscopic algae. Occasionally, the distant cries of seabirds would break the silence, while beneath your feet, vast subglacial lakes would rest in icy shadows, connected by thin streams of water meandering under the ice sheet. At this time of more intense climatic cycles, Antarctica combined hostility and life in its most isolated areas. The dry valleys, almost without ice, remained frigid, battered by wind, or frozen in silence. Viewed from space, the ice sheet appeared ringed by a moving sea ice, sometimes reaching low latitudes. The Southern Ocean, transformed by the influx of icy water, already interacted with the atmosphere, influencing the global climate through the release or trapping of gases. Isotopic analysis of deep ice crystals reveals much more than past temperatures. It also provides information on precipitation dynamics. In cold weather, the air contains less moisture, and the central regions of Antarctica receive less snow. During temporary warmings, evaporation intensifies elsewhere on the planet, reactivating polar depressions and promoting snowfall on the ice cap. These variations shape the thickening or thinning of the ice, recording successive strata in the ice cores, each one bearing witness to an era and a climatic event. The deeper you go in these drillings, the further back in time you travel, all the way to the beginnings of the early Pleistocene, where regular cycles of cooling and warming already appear. Just before the emergence of Homo sapiens, around 300,000 years ago, Antarctica was once again in a glacial phase, with its ice cap advancing far toward the ocean. Delta D and Delta 18O measurements at Dome C indicate a persistently cold climate, marked by increasingly large and regular fluctuations. If, by any chance, human explorers had set foot on its shores, they would have discovered a splendid yet unforgiving world, inaccessible to our species, for hundreds of thousands more years. Behind the ice barrier, the subglacial lakes remained sealed, waiting for the time when scientists would finally uncover their secrets. 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens did not yet exist in its modern form. Antarctica remained the exclusive domain of polar fauna and lakes, hidden beneath the ice. Its reliefs, shaped by frost, already displayed their austere grandeur. Katabatic winds swept the snow and sculpted the drifts. In this extreme environment, each species developed unique survival strategies, forming a living mosaic at the heart of the cold.